and so forth. Well, that's the opposite of what they said they were going to do to start this offseason, because they said, oh, it's not going to be like last year. We're going to wrap this up quickly. Well, it's exactly like last year. And Art Rooney II, the Steelers owner, was on the Insiders on the NFL Network with Tom Pelissero, and he went back and forth on where things stand with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, well, we've been in contact with Aaron on a regular basis. He's been keeping us up to date on his plans. And, even though I thought it probably would have been concluded by now, I think we will come to a conclusion here in the next few weeks.
Art, when you yesterday used the UFA tender to make sure that Aaron Rodgers, if he were to sign someplace else, you would get draft pick compensation. I haven't gotten the sense that that's something that is going to happen. But can you just, since it's been misinterpreted in a lot of different ways, just take us through the logic of using a tender that's not used very often?
Right. Well, the main thing that the tender gives us is potential for a comp pick. If Aaron would choose to go to another team, we don't expect that, but by the same token, you never know, and it's just something that we had an opportunity to protect if needed. The deadline was Monday, so if we were going to do it, we had to pull the trigger on Monday. We alerted Aaron and his representative that we were going to do it, and so not a real big deal, but just something that if in the unlikely event that he goes somewhere else, we are eligible for a comp pick in that situation.
In the unlikely event he goes somewhere else. Is that the headline off of Art Rooney on NFL Network, or is there something else that you guys see here?
I had 1A and 1B.
Okay.
The unlikely event, meaning that the Steelers firmly believe he's going to be back.
But that it's on the table.
But to say the unlikely event tells you that their plans are for Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback this season. And number 2 was, we'll know in a couple weeks. We're still going to wait a couple weeks for this? A couple weeks. Why are they waiting? If it is such an unlikely event, why are they waiting for him? Why is he dragging this out again? It feels like deja vu. And I don't know why the Steelers, a very proud organization that is turning the page into this new era of football, is willing to comply with this again.
I think it's twofold. I believe everything that Art Rooney said about the protection part. Like, notice he said that word a couple of times because it's to ensure that they get compensation if he goes somewhere else, or in the thing that he didn't say, the event that he retires. If he decides, hey, I'm actually good, I don't really want to play football in 26, they would get a compensatory pick next year for his decision to not play, because they're stuck then. They're stuck either way if he goes somewhere else or if he retires with the quarterback room that they have. I think what wasn't said in that, but what also is very much apparent here, is that they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed by themselves because they let it get to this place once again. They believe that Rodgers was a changed man in the way that they were going to approach this offseason with him. Look, we said, hey, we want a decision before the draft. We believe that Aaron Rodgers wants to do things differently. They played themselves. And now they're having to shake the branches of the tree a little bit to get him to come down. And I know that that's a weird thing to do because we don't often see the UFA tender placed on anybody, let alone a quarterback, let alone getting it to April 30th. And this is the thing where it's like, is he coming? Is he not? You got to, because there's been so much inaction, because he said, I have nothing to sign in front of me. There's no contract. This is their way of being like, hey, Aaron, we heard you. We're going to go about it in a way that protects us, that might also perturb you and piss you off, frankly, in the process. But we need to get a move on here because we said things were going to be different this time around. They're clearly not. We don't want to sign up for this again, going through this offseason process. We're trying to get this done sooner than minicamp. But as Michelle said, a couple of weeks? You're basically saying we want to do things differently, but we're okay playing it out the exact same way that it went out last year. Because you give this guy a couple weeks, he's taking it up to the 11th hour, just like he did in 25.
So one thing that jumped out at me, and I know Nuno has something here we're going to get to in a second. When Small said the Steelers turned the page, I don't think they did. There are 4 coaches that I always associate with each other based on resume. Take names out. I mean, I'm going to give you the names, but if you just look at the resume, they look similar, right? Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Mike McCarthy. They went from one of those guys to the other guy. I don't think they turned the page. They hired the same guy just on the offensive side. Stable, veteran, leader, always wins. That's how
Hold
I
on.
look at it.
With one big caveat.
Yeah.
One big difference. This new guy, while having some similarities to the old guy and Mike Tomlin, can get the best out of a quarterback. Historically,
Good
you
point.
bring in a Mike McCarthy to get a franchise quarterback and extract the best out of him.
Good one.
And yet we're going down this same road with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, the guy he got the most out of.
He's in his 40s.
No, I know, and that's why there's when Courtney's saying they're embarrassed. To me there's some level of justification of like, I'm Mike McCarthy. I'll do this with Will Howard. We'll do this.
Then why aren't we doing that?
I don't know.
Then why,
Isn't that the plan?
I don't know. No.
Well, actually, it led me into my question. Do we believe that if they knew Aaron Rodgers wasn't coming back, like at the end of the season, he's like, I'm retiring, that Mike McCarthy would actually be their guy?
We can answer that question coming up next. We're on Sportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Let's off here with a question. Go ahead, Nuno Miguel Barrera Teixeira DeVito.
When just looking at all this, if the Steelers knew that Aaron Rodgers wasn't coming back when at the end of the season, and would they have hired Mike McCarthy to be their coach going forward?
I personally believe the answer is yes, because I don't believe they hired Mike McCarthy for Aaron Rodgers. I personally, without any inside info on this, obviously, I don't think that they would be dumb enough to hire a coach for a 41-year-old quarterback who may or may not be on your team.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy is someone who's from the area, who understands the legacy of Pittsburgh Steelers football. He is a winner at the highest level. He's had success everywhere he's gone. And he's somebody that can get the best out of quarterbacks. So I'm with you, Av. I think that they would have gone with Mike McCarthy with or without Aaron Rodgers. It just so happens that they have that pre-existing relationship.
Why did they go Mike McCarthy? Why did they go offense? Because Mike Tomlin, for 2 decades, had held down the ship in Pittsburgh. And a lot of times what teams will do is if you have somebody who is Mike Tomlin didn't call the defense, but he was a defensive guy, you're going to go opposite. So there's the first part of it. What else does Mike McCarthy do really, really well that we have seen throughout his tenure in Green Bay? We've seen it throughout his tenure in Dallas. He develops quarterbacks. Did it with Dak Prescott in Dallas, did it with Aaron Rodgers. This is more than just about getting somebody in to then keep Aaron Rodgers in the fold in 2026. This is about doing that in the short term. That's a nice little plus, but this is about developing the next franchise quarterback, because they have not been able to do that since they had Ben Roethlisberger retire, and they've been trying to find a way, whether it's Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, whether it was Matt Canada before that. It was just like this revolving door of coaches who were not able to get the best out of the quarterbacks that they were bringing into the building. And they kept finding themselves in this weird stopgap position of, all right, we're going to go with this guy for a couple of years, hope he can develop. Oh, wait, he's not developing. We need to move on. This is supposed to put an end to all of that. And I guarantee that at some point it will. But it won't be with Aaron Rodgers at QB. That's for the short term. So I think either way, you look at some of the names that they were interviewing, Brian Flores, Anthony Weaver, Jesse Minter had interviewed there, now the head coach of the Ravens, Clay Kubiak, Chris Shula, Jeff Hafley, multiple coaches who ended up getting head coaching jobs elsewhere. So they brought in a nice crop, a crop of coaches who have pedigree. But I think of all of those things, the pedigree, the quarterback development aspect was ultimately the strongest with why they went with Mike McCarthy. And I think they would have done it 10 out of 10 times.
I think they went with Mike McCarthy because they didn't want Mike Tomlin to not be the head coach. They want Mike Tomlin to be the head coach. He left on his own. Totally his right. He felt like it was enough. They were never going to fire him, nor should they fire him. I think Mike McCarthy's the coach because of the fact that they didn't want Mike Tomlin to leave. And whatever this is, now this is more of a debatable issue. Whatever this is currently, they wanted to continue. And who's the best person to continue? Whatever this is, it's someone that literally has an unbelievably similar resume to Mike Tomlin. I don't think this has anything to do with Rodgers. I think the benefit of McCarthy is obviously QB development. I just think the Steelers wanted Mike Tomlin to be the head coach. Yes, Nuno.
No, I feel like this goes to, and Pat, asked this question about the functional franchise. This goes to the Steelers being half pregnant, and you can't be half pregnant. Like, they want to compete and develop someone. You can't do that. Like, I think this goes to a bigger issue with especially, legacy franchises when they don't realize that, like, the Steelers have already hit their ceiling point years ago, and they can't get out of their own
But there
way.
are some franchises, all sports, that will not tank.
They don't know how to reset. That's their problem.
And that's what they need. Like, I'm not talking about even a tanking, but realizing that, like, hey, we need to develop this younger guy. Like, hey, you know what, Aaron Rodgers, thank you for the year you gave us last year. It's a new regime. It's a new belief. Let's move on. Mike McCarthy, you're the guy. You're the QB. Like, you can develop these QBs. Here's
So
what
why
we
are
have.
they not? Wait, hold on. Why are they not doing that?
Because the ownership and probably Omar Khan, who's trying to keep his job, is saying, no, we just need a couple pieces and we can compete. And then you believe that. Like, it's the thing that happens. The Giants are in this rut, right? Where they've and obviously they've been a lot worse, but this rut of like, oh, we just need to fill in a couple holes. And you have this success, like you make the playoffs, so you live off of that, not realizing that, like, that's not our goal. We're not Cleveland. We're not the Browns. We're just happy to make the playoffs. Like, we expect titles.
But they expect
maybe
titles
they
that
are.
haven't come.
Wait.
And let's just be honest about this. The Mike McCarthy hire is kind of the antithesis of how they've done things in the past. If they really wanted to go the true Steelers way,
Right.
that would be finding the young up-and-coming talent, the way they did with Chuck Noll, who was a defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Colts before he took the Steelers job and then rode that off into retirement. Same thing with Bill Cowher, who was a position coach in Kansas City before he ends up taking that job, riding it off into his broadcasting career. Mike Tomlin, one-year defensive coordinator. This is not how they operate, but the reason they go with a coach has nothing, that I truly agree, has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers long-term, is because of the pedigree. They think they're in that caliber of NFL teams that, for better or for worse, right or wrong, fact or fiction, deserves to be in that upper echelon because of their pedigree. So they went with somebody they believe can carry on the pedigree part because he's won a Super Bowl, he's been a head coach multiple times, and they don't have to go through the gamble of taking a flyer on somebody who's a young up-and-coming assistant and hoping they can become the next Mike Tomlin and all the other, not many.
Because they didn't want Tomlin to leave. That is so blatantly obvious.
Sure.
And you did the comparison to the Browns, right? Or like, hey, we're not the Browns. Just like the Giants always say, we're not the Jets. And I have said personally that I believe the Giants have just been the Jets in blue. Have the Steelers kind of been the Browns in black and gold then? Is that what we're saying?
Well,
No.
They won
they've
more
been a little
games
better.
than that.
Yeah, I
They
wouldn't
haven't
go
had,
down that
pure
road.
I'm just asking the
destruction.
question.
No,
The comp.
they have 20 seasons, they're going to the playoffs. The Browns would dream of having the run that the
Absolutely.
Steelers have had, even
Absolutely.
recently.
Absolutely.
However, I do think we assign a certain level of competence and a certain level of benefit of the doubt to them based on the overall history of the franchise, rather than look at what has happened the past couple years with the quarterback, the consignment quarterbacks, as I've dubbed it, where they just are trying to find whoever is out there for a certain price that's a veteran guy, and they aren't bad enough to draft the quarterback that they need for the future, and they're doing it again. And maybe, to Pat's point and Pat's question, we need to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. We need to stop assigning a certain level of success and competence to them because they haven't earned it over the past couple years.
If Aaron Rodgers signs today, can they win the division?
No.
I think you're the one who said the Bengals need to win the division now after everything they've done.
Well,
I
need
would double
to.
down with that.
Well,
I would be stunned
there's
if the
a difference
Steelers beat the Ravens and or the Bengals to win the division.
Right. Need to and can they do it are two different things, right?
Right.
So neither of you believe the Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers signs today, ends all of the speculation that he could go to another team. Again, we can't figure out the team. I brought up the Broncos just because the Bo Nix injuries, but it seems like he'll be okay. But so if he signs today, you do not believe they can win the division.
No.
Well, that makes it look even worse that they have been waiting and waiting and waiting for a guy that may or may not get them to 9 wins. That's not ideal in any way, shape, or form. That is not the kind of QB succession plan that you want here.
And it would be more palatable if you knew for sure the next